The hidden truth. I had my annual physical, every August. This year it was performed by a new doctor. My old doctor had retired. The new doctor was a young woman, Marion Wellner. She is a redhead in her early 30s. I didn't really want her to do the exam. Part of it was the intimate physical contact, and I thought about the embarrassment. Dr. Wellner's nurse did a lot of preliminary procedures, such as taking blood pressure, EKG, and testing my ability to remember a book, an apple, a desk in a few minutes. This was something I was always worried about. But this time I was worried about being practically naked in front of a young woman, an attractive young woman, but I didn't need to worry. I was so overexcited that there was no chance of arousal. When we were done with that part, she smiled and said, "Well, I'm sure you're glad it's over." "Yes, glad. Thank you." I smiled back at her. The rest of the examination was routine. The blood work was excellent, and everything was checked out. As we were about to part, she asked, "Do you have 3 children?" "Yes, 2 boys and a girl." "Have you adopted a child?" "No." "IVF." "Why do you ask?" She's blushing. "Well, I'm new, and I've been going through all your records before this meeting." "Oh, you... Well, never mind. Thank you for being so quick." She waved her hands. "You must explain yourself, doctor. It's my body." "Mr. Miller, you have a medical condition. You've been infertile since birth." "Mr. Miller is me, Ted Miller." "Oh, no one told you about this?" "No. Please make copies of all my medical records." Now, I was as shocked as I could possibly be. Sure. I'm sorry. I should have kept my mouth shut." "No, not at all. Apparently, too many people were silent." About 30 minutes later, I got the tapes. Meanwhile, I was thinking about it. I'm 48. I've been married for 26 years to Melissa. We have 3 children, Brad, 24, Mary, 22, and William, 20. At least I thought we had 3 children. Brad is married, with a son on the way. Mary is fresh out of college, and William is a junior college student. I wondered who their real father was, but upon reflection I found that I was not convinced by Dr. Wellner's words. All 3 of them looked like me, partly. When the tapes arrived, I took them into my office and scanned them. I considered various possibilities to verify what she had told me. Called a college buddy of mine who was a former doctor in New York. He called me back an hour later. "This is Mark Madden, a urologist." "Close enough." I said, "Hi, Mark. I need a consult, but not in person, and I need strict confidentiality. Tell me about it." I did. "Email me the notes, and I'll review them this afternoon." "Done, and please send me the bill." "The service is done quickly." He called back at 3:30. "Ted, you had a medical condition at birth that resulted in infertility. I assume you didn't do anything about it." "I didn't know about it." "Well, when you were born and diagnosed, there was nothing you could do about it. In the last 10 years, we've developed a method to help you." "Can you send me a textbook on that, Mark?" Sure. I'll email it to you in 10 minutes. Good luck." "Thank you." "Hey, Ted, don't you have kids?" "I do." "Well, that's what I thought." Oh, I see. Good luck with that." I hung up and called the DNA lab, arranged to have some kits sent to me, same day. They arrived at 5 o'clock. I put them in my briefcase and headed home. My youngest, William, was still in school and was due to leave the following week. Upon reflection, I decided that testing one of the kids would be enough. When I arrived, Will was home, reading in the living room. Melissa was cooking. She was usually home early from work, selling real estate through an agency owned by my older brother, Robert. I could smell the fish. Her cooking, that is. The 3 of us ate crusted cod and salad. Good food. I think Mel noticed my reticence, but Will probably didn't. Mel's 48, too. She hasn't put on a pound since college, where we met. She has dark brown hair and eyes like mine. She's 5'3", weighs 59 pounds, and is quite pretty. While Mel and I cleaned up, I took the glass that Will had used at dinner. Later, I took it upstairs and wiped the rim with the tampon I had. Then went to Will's room and took a few hairs from his brush. Also swabbed the neckline of a t-shirt in his dirty clothes hamper, and also his sneakers. I also swabbed the inside of his cheek, sealed everything in envelopes, and put them in my briefcase. That evening, Will left, and when he left, Mel asked me, "What's going on with you, Ted? You're sluggish. I had a physical. Anything wrong?" "No. Healthy as ever." Probably just nervous about the new doctor. How's she doing? She's good. She's pretty. I was nervous, you know. She laughed. Her laugh is infectious. You didn't get a rise out of it, huh? No, too nervous. About maybe getting an erection. Well, I'll see her next week, and I'll ask her, just to check it out. Uh-huh. I left. She wanted love that night, and I told her I didn't really want it. She took it well. That I turned her down was unusual. The next day, I took the DNA samples to the lab myself, paid for a quick analysis. They told me they'd have something by Friday. 2 days later, I went to work. I work as an associate at an investment bank. Basically, I manage an in-house team of 6 other lawyers. We're located in Washington, D.C., close to the regulatory agencies. It's a job I've been doing for 22 years, and I make very good money. I also have stock options that, if cashed in, would be worth a very tidy sum. I will admit that I have been distracted at work. However, what needed to be done was done. I biked to work and biked back. Exercise, I thought, would calm me down. When I arrived at 6, Mel wasn't home. She had left a note saying there were sandwiches and salad in the fridge. She was going to a play and then maybe a bachelorette party. Normally, I wouldn't have given it much thought. She did both with some regularity. But there was no trust now. I ran a location finder on her phone. She wasn't at a nightclub. She was at a motel near the Fairfax line. I ate and talked a little with Will about the upcoming college. He was looking forward to it. The summer went well for him. He worked at a bike repair shop and made decent money, but he had broken up with his girlfriend Lisa and was a little depressed. I went to bed early. Mel came in at 11 and was in bed soon after. No shower. But she pulled away a little when I tried to snuggle up to her. I did it to see her reaction. I knew she was cheating, just didn't know with whom, and I wasn't going to try to make love to her. The next day, I got up early and rode my bike to work again. There I showered and got straight to work. It was a busy morning. At 1 o'clock, I got a call from the DNA lab. They had emailed me the report, but on the phone, the technician said Will's samples belonged to my nephew. I almost fainted. I only have one brother, Robert. He's 3 years older than me. All through my childhood, he helped me. He and I were about the same height, 5'3" and of average build. He was a good athlete in high school and played basketball at university. He wasn't a star, but he played. He finished school and went into real estate sales, succeeded in that and opened his own firm, married Glenda Wilson, his college sweetheart, and they had 3 children. All 3 graduated from college and worked. About 4 years ago, Melissa joined his firm. Before that, she was a part-time teacher. I was making good money and she didn't need to work. But Will was old enough to look after himself after school, and she wanted something more interesting. At least that's what she said. Right now, I absolutely didn't believe anything she was saying. After receiving the news about the DNA, I sat back and pondered what could have happened. All 3 of my children had birthdays in late September. The countdown I got was around Christmas. When Mel and I decided to have children, she stopped taking birth control pills. We tried for a few months before the last Christmas before Brad came along. On Christmas Day, there was a big family reunion, as usual, and Rob and his family were there. And I remembered that after Christmas that year and many subsequent years, Mel and her friend Linda Green went on a week-long meditation retreat. They would leave on Boxing Day, the second day of Christmas, and return on New Year's Day. In some years, they would stay an additional week. The seminar was supposed to be held at a center in the mountains of West Virginia. When Brad showed up, Mel didn't go the next year. But the next year, she went again. The following September, Mary came along. When Mary was breastfeeding, there was no seminar, but when she turned 15 months old, Mel and Linda went again. The following September, Will arrived. The retreats continued for several years. I thought about it. They stopped when Mel moved on to work for Rob. Linda Green had been Mel's best friend since college. She took a job at Rob's new firm when he opened it. So, the 3 of them worked together, and it was like that for a while. The next weekend, we drove Will back to college. I rented a van, and we had a nice 2-hour trip on Saturday. Had lunch with Will and helped him move into the apartment he shared with his good friend Mike Watson. Afterward, Mel and I waved goodbye to them and left. I'll admit, when it was just the 2 of us, I was quiet. Eventually, Mel noticed this. She said, "What? You haven't said 2 words to me." She looked worried. "I have a lot on my mind, Mel. A lot of things. That's not what I'm going to discuss right now. So, the mystery. Ted, you're not lying about the physical exam, are you? No. Let it go, Mel. That's my best advice right now. For the rest of the drive, about an hour, we barely talked about anything. I dropped her off and returned the van. Afterward, I went to a local bar and had a beer, thought about it some more. I couldn't understand how Mel had done some kind of medical procedure to get Rob pregnant. It meant only one thing. They had made love, repeatedly and for years. It was probably Rob that Mel had met at the motel. Sitting at the bar, I was angrier than ever. You know what they say about the color red in the eyes? I felt like that was the case. Everything I looked at had a strange tint to it. I startled the bar manager, a young woman. Finally, I threw a 10 on the bar and left. I had a few friends with whom I played cards and tennis. My closest buddy was Ned Bart. I went to his house. He and Mel never got along. His wife, Sadie, wasn't close to Mel at all. Their kids had gone off to college, too. So when I rang the bell, Sadie opened the door. Ned was next door. They saw right away that I was out of shape. Ned has a small gym in his garage in the backyard. I said, I need to use Ned's comm. Ned and I used to do self-defense at the small gym near our house. I knew he had a bag because I worked out with him once a week. Of course he did. He and I went out to the backyard. I put on my gloves and pounced on his heavy sack as if my life depended on it bursting. Ned watched silently. After the initial frenzy, I began to act more systematically. I kept punching and punching until I fell. Ned picked me up and helped me to his house. I collapsed on a chaise lounge on his terrace. Sadie brought me some water. After coming to my senses a little, I started sobbing. Ned asked, Is anyone dead or hurt? No, not yet. My sobbing turned to growling. Those two were smart enough to leave me alone. 10 minutes later, Ned brought in a beer. Sadie sat down next to me. She said, Now that you've done all this, you have to tell us. I made them promise to remain silent, so I laid it all out for them. Both of them were shocked. Ned said, How? I mean, without telling you. Your parents must have known. I thought about it. The medical records when I was a kid were all about the condition. They knew. Sadie asked, What are you going to do? I have no idea. Don't take it personally. Please don't snap like you did with the sack. Prison is not a good place. I won't. I think I'd better go home. She'll worry, and I want to avoid confrontation. For now. I drove back to my house. Mel was standing at the door. Where have you been? I was so worried. Stopped for a beer and ran into Ned. Went over to his house to do some bag hauling work. Sorry, I should have called. I went upstairs to shower and we had dinner. Sunday, we went on a picnic to a local park and went rollerblading. But on neither night did we make love. On Sunday, Mel looked disappointed and puzzled. I got up early and left for work without waking her. Made an appointment with a lawyer in a neighboring building and stopped by our bank. And also visited my firm's HR department to change the direct deposit and beneficiary of my retirement account. This proved difficult. The attorney let me know about a divorce in our state, but she, Millie Stanton, also told me that my wife and brother had cheated on me. Maybe I could use that. I asked her to draft a divorce petition with alternative grounds, but that she not file it with Mel until I gave the okay. That night, I installed a tracking program on Mel's cell phone. It was on my data plan, and I could get her messages and the numbers she was calling. I also planted 3 small voice recorders in my house, in the kitchen, bedroom, and living room. One went in her car. I asked Mel to arrange a party at our house with Rob and Glenda on Friday night. Monday and Tuesday, I stayed late at work, telling Mel I had an important matter to take care of. Wednesday, I got home on time. We had a nice dinner and I made a good face. But the love wasn't there. Mel was clearly disappointed. Later, I downloaded all the material from the recorders and checked her phone. When Mel went to bed, I listened. There weren't many recordings. No one was home during the day, and Mel didn't talk to herself. She made 1 call to Rob's cell phone and 1 to my mom's. 5 years before, my mom had been widowed. She was 78 and lived 30 minutes away from the house I grew up in. The call to her sounded first. I heard Mel's voice. Mom, have you heard anything about Tim lately? Well, he doesn't seem to be himself. He had a physical, and he hasn't been himself since. I don't know. Just checking in. Okay. The next call was to Rob. Rob, it's Mel. No, we can't do it this week. You guys are coming in on Friday. Yeah, and Tim's acting weird. I don't know. I don't see any chance of him finding out anything. Look, we're being careful, and anyway, I think he got some bad news from the physical. Okay. See you, babe. That conversation was the actual end of my marriage. They're still together. It occurred to me that at first they might have thought they were doing me a favor. But really, whatever they think, I'm going to punish them as best I can. Friday at 6:30, Rob and Glenda arrived. Mel and I prepared the food, grilled hamburgers and fries, salad. While we were doing that, I studiously ignored Mel. She noticed it, but didn't say anything. When the doorbell rang, she looked at me and said, "I hope, Tim, you're not going to be in a bad mood all evening." I said nothing and opened the door. Rob and Glenda greeted me. Glenda gave me a hug. Rob tried to do the same, but I turned away. I brought them drinks, beer for Rob, white wine for Glenda. We sat on the terrace, all four of us. I said, "I'm divorcing you, Mel. You'll be served with the divorce papers on Monday. Rob, I'm suing you for alimony for all the years I raised and paid for the upbringing of your children." Mel began to sob. Rob jumped up and stood over me. "You're a jerk! You're a jerk! I'm going to hit you now!" Glenda watched. Rob tried to hit me as I sat on a chair by the porch. I jerked back away from him and rolled over in the chair. Then he stood up and said, "Are you mad? You're a hypocritical asshole. Let's do it. Let's do it." He growled and came at me, swinging. I ducked under his fist and punched him in the gut. He wasn't as strong as I was. The blow knocked him out of breath, no matter. I punched him in the stomach again. I didn't hear Mel's screams. I kept hitting Rob until he fell on my shoulder. Then I kicked him in the balls with my knee and threw him to the terrace. I turned around. Glenda was up, but was only looking at Mel, who had rushed over to Rob. He was conscious and moaning. Mel looked up at me. "You had no reason to hurt Rob. No reason at all. You're a savage. You could have killed him." She was still sobbing. "And I still could. And you're not safe either. You're a treacherous fool." Mel turned white at my threat. She slowly backed away from Rob. I growled at her. "Pick that piece of shit up and get him out of my sight. You only have a minute before I finally finish him off." Mel tried to lift Rob up. She had a hard time handling his dead weight. She looked at Glenda and said, "Help me with him, Glenda." Glenda came to her senses a little. She simply said, "No, you two are on your own. I agree that you are a fool." Mel pulled Rob onto the patio couch. She picked him up in her arms and staggered off, disappearing into the kitchen. I looked at Glenda. "So you didn't know?" "No. No, I'd had some suspicions about Rob over the years, but not with Mel. I think they're still together. Maybe she's making love to other guys too, I don't know." I heard the garage door go up. I went inside and looked out the front door. Mel put Rob in the passenger seat of her SUV and drove off. Glenda came inside. She was a pleasant-looking woman, blonde, 46 years old. She was well-dressed for a dinner party, but she was crying, and her makeup didn't look good. I looked at her. "More wine?" "No, can't you explain all this to me?" I did. She was sitting at the kitchen table. When I got to the post-Christmas seminars, Glenda said, "Rob always went on winter ski trips. I couldn't stand skiing and stayed home with Mark." Mark was her son. I said, "I wonder where they actually went." "Who cares? It's all too much for me." "I'm sorry, Glenda. I thought you knew." "Are you getting a real divorce?" "Of course I am. I never doubted it. I told Glenda she could stay, sleep in the guest room. She agreed. Then we started talking about the past, about when and where Rob and Mel might meet now. I showed her the tape of Mel's call to Rob. It left no doubt that their affair was still going on. At 10 o'clock, we had hamburgers. We talked some more about practical things, like where we were all going to live. I had a line on an apartment near work. I assumed that Mel and I would split the money, including the proceeds of the house. For now, I would stay here. Glenda decided to go upstairs and go to bed. I followed her to see how things were going with the guest room. It was ready. I brought her a towel and a toothbrush. As I was leaving, she said, "I always liked you, Tim. I never liked Mel. She thought I was on some low level. I think I know why now." I waved her off and closed the door. The next morning, I was up and about. The police hadn't come for me. I guessed that neither Rob nor Mel wanted publicity. I asked Glenda what she was going to do. She said she would go to her mother's house until Rob vacated their house. I gave her my attorney's email address and told her to contact her for clarification. Her car was still there. I asked if she wanted me to accompany her to pick up more of her belongings. She agreed. So I pulled a gun out of my gun safe and followed her car to their house. Mel's car wasn't there. Glenda and I went inside. There was no one there. I began to wonder how badly I had hurt that asshole. I hoped he'd been admitted to some low-grade hospital where he'd get an infection caused by the Clostridium difficile bacteria and die of dehydration, or something like that. Glenda sat down. She said, "I wonder where they are. Let me check it out." I ran the phone locator again. I wondered why Mel hadn't noticed it the first time. This time her phone was at Cambria Hospital. I called the hospital and asked if Rob was there. I was told he had been admitted. I informed Glenda of this. She decided to stay at her house and change the locks, so I went to Home Depot and bought a bunch of new hardware, some for her, some for me. I spent the morning installing it. I gave her the keys and left her there, but I felt sorry for her and told her I'd like to come back. She agreed, said she'd cook. I finished changing the locks on my house and made extra keys for me and Glenda. I got home to her house at 4 o'clock. As I entered the house, I received a call on my cell phone. It was Detective William James. He wanted to talk to me. I said, "I'm at 204 Western Street. Mrs. Glenda Miller is here too." "She's the second witness. The victim's wife?" He wasn't the victim, Detective. And yes, she is. "Are you coming over?" "I can be there in 15 minutes. He was an African-American man with a light complexion, short and broad. He was wearing a nice suit and expensive loafers. "Hi, Nick." Glenda let him in the front door and he introduced himself, then asked, "Are you two cozy?" She replied, "No. Our spouses are the ones making love, not us." Then she looked at me. "For now." She said it flatly, as if it was meant to be. James stared at her, then at me. He said, "Maybe you'll get lucky, kid." I replied, "Maybe." I looked at Glenda. She didn't look away. I figured that wasn't the best approach to a police interrogation. James said, "I'd like to talk to Mrs. Miller first." Glenda took him back to the back patio, and I saw him turn on the recorder on his phone. They talked for almost 20 minutes. Then Glenda walked into the house and waved for me to go out onto the patio. As she walked by, she whispered, "I mean it." Her open offer was a real distraction. I'd always liked her, and I liked her looks. But I wasn't the type to prank, and yet... The detective said he was taking notes and asked me to tell what happened. I started by saying that I'd learned that my kids were actually Rob's, and that I'd only recently found out. Described dinner on Friday and his reaction. Also described our fight. I was as accurate as I could be. When I finished, he asked, "How did you know that?" "I don't want to discuss it. Suffice it to say, no one snitched on me. It was an accident." "All right." Chuckles. "Well, Mr. Miller, your testimony is pretty consistent with your wife's. I haven't questioned your brother yet." "Why not?" "Because after I talked to your wife, I thought he was the aggressor and you responded. And he's not in very good shape right now. He's going to have to stay a day or so longer to take some tests." I asked, "Tests?" He gave me a hard look. "This is not a joke at all. A knee to the balls is the only thing that will get you in trouble." But then he turned away and smiled. "What happens now?" "I'm going to write this down and send it to the Commonwealth's attorney. She'll make a decision. I'll talk to your brother." Detective James stood up and I escorted him into the house, where Glenda joined us as we walked to the front door. Once out of the entryway, he turned and looked at us. "I hope you two have a good evening." Then he walked to his car. Glenda closed the door. She stood right in front of me, head up and a little sideways. She said, "Dinner is a heavy salad in the refrigerator. No rush." She said it in a voice that left no doubt about what she wanted from me. I don't know how women do it. I kissed her. It was an open invitation, and I saw no reason to refuse. She sank into me, and our kisses carried us over to the couch. She pulled me on top of her. She was frantic, and I responded to her. Undressing, I stood over her. She pulled down her dress. She wasn't wearing a bra, and of her panties, she was wearing only a thong. I thought later that she had planned it all out and dressed for seduction. It had certainly worked. I picked her up and laid her down on the couch. After an hour of pleasure, I rolled off her and she slowly got up. Took off her thong. They were pink. She held them out to me, saying, "A souvenir, a memento of our first time." She smiled. She was a total cheater at that moment. I approved. She took my hand and led me into the kitchen. We ate dinner and went upstairs. She said, "I know that what we're doing is maybe some kind of rebuilding, but I'm okay with it." Me neither. Then we showered and fondled each other until I got an erection again. When that happened, she got on top of me and rode me for quite a while. She experienced a series of violent pleasures. At this point, our middle-aged bodies began to need sleep, and we got it. I woke up first. I was in the master bedroom shower when she entered me. This led to another bout. We soaped each other up, rinsed everything off, and wiped each other dry, then brought each other to the point of pleasure. Then we showered again and had breakfast. It was Sunday. We both wondered what was going on with our spouses, but neither of us were church people. I checked the location of Mel's cell phone. It was at my mother's house. That just reminded me that I needed to talk to my mother, who probably played some role in my cuckolding. I brought it up with Glenda. She said, "I'm not really sure about any of this. You know how it happened. Maybe it doesn't really matter." It matters to me if my mom had something to do with it. And I also need to talk to Mel. Maybe she came home and couldn't get in. But she made no effort to see me or communicate with me. They're probably working things out. "I'm heading over there. You want to come with me?" "I always do. I'm a born cheater. You rip my hat off." She laughed. "So you'll come with me to my mom's?" "Yeah, why not? We can make it obvious what we've done." "Yeah. What good is revenge love if the cheaters don't know about it?" We both laughed. We pulled up to my mom's house. Shirley Miller, Mel's car was there. Glenda and I went out on the porch, and my mom opened the door. "Go away, Tim. You hurt Rob." Rob needed to be hurt. Anyway, he tried to hit me. "I'm here to find out how much you had to do with this. If I turn around and walk away, I'm not coming back. Ever." She let me in. Glenda followed me in. Mel was sitting in the kitchen. She saw me, and then she saw Glenda, and she knew right away. She said, "Oh, you fool, you didn't wait long, did you?" "No. Why would I wait? Your boyfriend can't give me pleasure anymore, but your husband sure can." Mel got up quickly, but I dragged her away. My mom yelled for us to stop. She looked at me and said, "Tim, you probably blew it when you went with Glenda." "No, I'm a free agent now, and so is she. I think that's the way it's always been with Mel and Rob. Glenda and I have a lot of catching up to do, and we had a good start." Mel said, "You have to listen to me and your mom. We can, get it all out in the open and maybe heal." Tim looked back and forth between his wife and his mother. "Listening." Shirley looked at Mel, and Mel said, "We wanted kids, you and me. But when we started trying, your mom said you were sterile. No kids. You didn't know." Shirley said, "But I had a solution. Rob. Rob could get Mel pregnant, and you would never know." I said, "And you decided all that without telling me." Shirley replied, "Your father wanted to discuss it with all of us, but was overruled. The vote was 3-1. Yes, 2 cheaters and you against your father. We've been pricing out different methods. Medical. They were all too expensive and time-consuming. You'd have to know you were raising Rob's kids." Mel said, "So we reluctantly decided to do it the natural way." I said, "And you lied and snuck out and made love for a week. Once for 2 weeks. And you had a great time, didn't you, Mel?" She looked down and said, "Once we got over the initial indecision, I did have a great time. I'm not going to lie about that, and it all worked out." I said, "Well, it worked all 3 times, and you looked forward to the time you spent with Rob." Mel said, "Yes, I was looking forward to it. He's a good man." Glenda said, "Really? What about me, you fool? He lied and abused me." Shirley said, "We thought you might disagree." Glenda frowned. "You were absolutely right. I wouldn't have agreed then, and I don't agree now. You were the cause, at least, of my divorce. I'm willing to bet Tim's too." Mel said, "Nobody needs to get divorced. Neither of you knew anything, and up until now you've both been happy. What happened?" "My physical. The doctor told me I'd been infertile since birth. I took DNA from William." Mel lowered her eyes. You know everything now, Tim. We can get through this. You love these kids. You love me. I said, but Mel, you two kept making love. After 3 kids, you kept doing it until you went to work at his firm, and I bet you never stopped. Glenda growled, well, what, you fool? How many times have you and Rob slept together in the last year? Shirley stared at Mel. Mel? Please tell me that's not true. Mel? We were in love. We were compatible, in and out of bed. That's why we kept seeing each other. I said, yeah, like last week at the Shady Pines Motel. Mel looked shocked. You hired a detective? Just ran the locator on your phone. Mel said, we can stop. We'll stop. All I need is you, Tim. Glenda said, I want him too. You can leave with your big love interest. There's no going back. Shirley, who was standing, sat down abruptly on a kitchen chair. She didn't look well. I asked, Mom, are you okay? She cried. What have I done? Oh my God! Glenda said, secrets and lies only lead to more secrets and lies. You should have told Tim from the beginning. Mel said, then none of our children would have existed. So maybe what Shirley did wasn't so bad. I looked at Mel. You're missing the point, Mel. You, Rob, and my mom schemed, plotted, and betrayed me. Looking back, my life seems like a big fake facade. You stole my life from me. You hollowed it out. My whole life was a lie. I sat down, too. A deep sadness filled me. Mel stepped toward me. I pushed her away. I sobbed, never again, Mel, never again. Glenda hugged me from behind. We were all crying. Finally, I stood up, and Glenda and I walked away from the others. No one followed us. When we got back to her house, we weren't in the mood. I helped her weed the vegetable garden and mow the lawn. We had lunch. Afterward, we started talking. I asked, Glenda, are you sure about the divorce? After all, you and Rob were together. Glenda replied, well, remember what you said about them taking over your life. I feel the same way. I'm going to see your lawyer tomorrow. We can go together, but I don't see any way back. It's been too long and too evil. I said, this is what I believe in. I have to think about the kids. I guess if there's going to be a divorce, they need to know why. How do I tell them? Call them. Or write a letter and ask them to call. That's what I did. After lunch, I wrote a letter to my 3 children. The gist of the letter, after I laid out the facts, was that they will always be my children. To me, they will always be the ones I raised and loved. I sent the letter and asked them all to call. My cell phone rang a little over an hour later. It was my daughter, Mary. She asked, Daddy, are you okay? I will be. How are you? It's a very hard thing to go through. All I know is that I love you, and you're my daddy forever. I can't figure out what to do about Mom. Her and Grandma, how could they? Grandma thought she was doing me a favor. I didn't know the 2 of them were forever. Your mom? I'll never forgive her. Never. What you do is up to you. I won't know what to do for a while. Well, in many ways, I hope you come to some sort of semi-friendly solution. I guess I hope so. Yeah. Uncomplicated. Well, I just wanted to talk to you. I love you. I love you too. We hung up. 2 minutes later, Brad called and we had a similar conversation. William called at 11 when he read the letter. He was a little more reserved than the other 2. He said, when I was home and everyone else had gone to school, I saw something about Mom. I let it pass my ears, but I should have talked to someone about it. I'm sorry, Dad. There's no reason to mope. It's over. You were in a tough spot and didn't know about all this. We finished our conversation after a few minutes. Will didn't speak very well. He was close to his mother. At least he had been. I wondered how much he really knew about her and Rob. Glenda was in the kitchen, looking through an old photo album. I joined her. There were all sorts of pictures of her family growing up, and mine, too. After a while, we were both sobbing. She said, maybe this isn't such a good idea. No, we have to accept what is lost. I put my arms around her and gave her a big, friendly hug. We watched the memories some more. Then we went up to bed. We slept together, but there was no love. Monday morning, we went to see the lawyer. Millie Stanton was uncomfortable talking to both of us at once, but we insisted. She was a large woman in her 50s with a bouffant 50s-style hairdo. Gray hair, but a non-serious attitude. I liked her despite the hairstyle. She explained the basics of divorce in the state and said adultery is one of the grounds for divorce, but it's not in favor right now. However, she said that our situation was out of the ordinary. We devised a plan whereby we would each file for divorce, and I would sue Rob for alimony. Millie was not comfortable with Glenda being present because Rob's finances were tied to her finances. Millie said that she would file papers on the matter, or she could wait to file against Rob until after the maternity. I asked that Mel be served at work and at the same time as Rob. It was to be on Wednesday. I took Glenda to her bank to try to separate their assets. It took a while, and we had a late lunch at Bersoni's Italian restaurant. Got back to her house at 4. I decided to stop by my house, and she came with me. No one was fiddling with the new locks. We went inside. She looked around, seeing again what had been familiar to her for years. I turned around, and she was standing next to me, with the same look. She said, "I want you to make love to me on her bed. Now, please." I could only fulfill such a sincere request. I just picked her up in my arms and carried her upstairs, threw her on the big bed in the master bedroom. She was laughing. She said, "You are so rough and strong. There's no way Rob could have done that." She got up and undressed, and so did I. Naked, we collapsed back on the bed. Then it went slowly. It was strange to me at first, sleeping with another woman in this bed. But I got over it quickly. After that, we lay there. Some time passed, and she said, "It was so great. Taking that fool's husband in her own bed. It couldn't have been better." I smiled and said, "What a vindictive cheater you are." "Yeah, and it's all to your advantage. Well, mostly mine. But you enjoyed it, too." Of course I did. We climaxed in revenge love. Now she's laughing. "Uh-huh. It went downhill from there, but it wasn't slanted at all. We made love all night until we stopped." In the morning before work, I made love to her. Tender love-making. After the shower, she cried, and so did I. But we got dressed and went to work. Glenda took one of Mel's work outfits. I assumed it was more out of revenge. It was a little tight on top. Mel called me at work. She said, "I need to go inside to get my stuff. I came to work in a dirty dress. I can meet you at the house at 6. Has Rob been released from the hospital?" "No. He's going into surgery. You gave him a good thrashing. Where are you staying?" "Your mom's house. I'm in your old room." Ironic. "Where are you and that idiot staying?" "Here and there." "You have to rent out one of the houses. What happens when Rob comes out?" "Not my problem. Have you heard anything about the kids?" "No. What did you do?" I emailed them a report of what happened, and I talked to them on the phone. "Oh, Tim, they're gonna hate me. They didn't call me. None of them did." "You know you deserve—" "Asshole!" she yelled. I blacked out. I met Mel at the house at 6. She was on time, an amazing development. She got out of the car and I unlocked the door. She went upstairs. There was a scream. "You slept with her on my bed! I can smell it! I can't believe you did that!" I came up and said, "She wanted to do it. Revenge for you taking her husband. That doesn't sound like enough to me." Mel's rage was oozing out of her. She gathered her clothes, and I helped her carry them downstairs. She had a bag for toiletries. As she loaded up, not noticing the missing clothes Glenda was wearing, she asked me, "Is there any chance we can—" "No, none. I was serious in every word I said, Mel. It's over between us." She looked depressed, but not surprised. She said, "In the beginning, I really wanted to have a good family, like any wife. It seemed like the best way out. But then things went off the rails. I apologize for that." I don't accept that apology. There is nothing you can do to make it up to me for having children with another guy and cheating on me for years. The apology isn't even close. And I don't believe you're sorry. She got in her car and drove away. The next day she was served at work. Glenda served Rob at the hospital. After lunch, my mom called. She said, "Tim, did you have to rush through the paperwork? If you cooled off, maybe things could get better." "It didn't, Mom. She's been sleeping with Rob all these years." "Tim! Don't Tim me, Mom. And remember who started all this shit? Oh, I remember. Everything was working fine until last week. I said goodbye. Haven't decided what to do with her yet. After all, she's the one who caused all this. Save us from the do-gooders. Rob was released from the hospital on Friday. He couldn't go back to his house because Glenda would kill him with his own gun. He ended up at our mom's house, and Mel was there too. I didn't care one bit that they were carrying on, even if it was in my old room, or his. But if my mom lets them do it, she's dead to me. I discussed this with Glenda. She and I decided to figure out what was what. I still had a key to the house. We waited until 2 o'clock in the morning. I drove us there, used the key to unlock the back door. I had my gun with me in case of an attack. Glenda waited downstairs while I crept up and peeked into my old room. I assumed they would be there because it had a double bed. Rob's room didn't have one. They were both there. I had my phone at the ready and turned on the light to take some pictures. There were screams, mostly Mel's. She was naked. Rob was naked too, but he had a large bandage around his lower ribs. He couldn't move properly. Mel just pulled the blanket over him. My mom was running down the hall and saw me, and she said, "Tim, don't jump to conclusions." I said, "I'm not. There's no need. You're condoning what they did, what they're still doing." I turned and went downstairs. Glenda was waiting for me there. She said, "I guess they were together." "Uh-huh, let's go." Mom and Mel came running in. Mel was wearing a robe. Bad boy Rob was nowhere to be seen. Mom said, "They're adults. What can I do?" "Throw them outside. This is my old bed. I think Rob's goal is to sleep with her everywhere I've been." Mel replied, "He didn't make love to me. He couldn't. You hurt him." I laughed at her. "Although you must have tried, huh?" "So? I don't stand a chance with you. I really don't. I hope you both rot in hell." I turned to my mom. "I'm done with you. I'm still your son, but not anymore. You have him now, not me." Glenda and I left, went back to her house. Incredibly, when we went to bed at 4 o'clock, we made love like animals. Glenda and I stayed together while the divorce went through the courts. Mel and I sold the house and split the money. She didn't get alimony or anything else from me. The judge didn't like what she did. My children adjusted. The older two didn't communicate with Mel except for sending a Christmas card. They blocked her calls. Will talked to her, but wasn't very condescending. When it came time for him to spend the summer between the years, he stayed with me. He had no contact with Rob. Mel met him for lunch a few times, but Rob wasn't with her. Will didn't want to talk to him. Glenda got almost everything. She kept the house and got a large lump sum for her share of Rob's business. Rob lived in a 2-bedroom apartment near his work with Mel. About a week after the divorce, Glenda and I talked. Our sexual passion hadn't diminished, but other than that, we weren't really compatible. So I moved out. Neither of us were particularly saddened. I think we knew almost from the beginning that what we had couldn't last. There was too much water under the bridge. She made me promise to come over and sleep with her from time to time, provided she didn't start another relationship, or me. I agreed. She was sexy, and we were so well suited for each other. I had surgery that successfully solved my problem. At 49 years old, I was no longer sterile. There's a lot of good in that, is what I think. One night at the gym where Ned and I went to do self-defense workouts, I saw a woman kicking a heavy bag. She was a savage, and she looked fantastic. After she finished, she looked back at me and asked, "Scared?" I smiled. "Of course," and stepped back, raising my hands in a sign of surrender. She laughed. "I've been watching you. You're not scared of me." I replied, "I'm not afraid. No. I'm Hilda Marks, and you're Tim Miller. I'm going to take a shower and get some coffee." She gestured to the store across the street. I said, "Meet me there in 10 minutes. Make it 15. I am a woman after all." "No doubt about it." We had a pleasant conversation. She was new. She's 36, has a high school son, no husband. She left him on the West Coast. Talking, we spent almost 2 hours. By the time the store closed, she knew everything about me. Medical history and everything else. I was fascinated. And she was interested in me. At the time, I had a bungalow about a mile from the gym, 2 bedrooms. It was 2 weeks before she visited my bed and stayed the night. She was as wild in bed as she was in the gym. But I was stronger, and she didn't want to win. She wanted to be conquered. I found that to be a real aphrodisiac. Her son's name is Donald. He was 16 in his junior year of high school. We got along well because he was a baseball player and I was the same way. I ended up helping out on the school team. 6 months after we met, Hilda and I were married. She was pregnant, an arranged marriage. Donald and her moved in with me in a house I bought next to my old one. He got his own room and found room in the basement for sports equipment so his mom could continue to be deadly. Soon, Thomas Timothy Miller showed up. To me, he was a miracle. Afterward, Mel and Rob soon became history. She changed agencies. She hooked up with a plumber. He was younger than her, 40 years old. I guess she's still hot. Glenda married a guy she dated in college, James Wilder. Hilda and I hung out with them for a while. He seemed like a nice guy. I can confirm that Glenda's still looking good. I guess she's still sexy in bed. James and I talked about it once. It was kind of a bonding moment. I never fully forgave my mother. But I visited her. When Thomas was born, she was thrilled. Hilda made sure my mother saw him regularly. She sympathized with her a little more than I did. In June of this year, Mom passed away. The memorial service was quiet, despite our family history. Rob said a parting word. I didn't. He kept his distance from me. The end,